Hello, everyone. I did promise Peggy I was going to be here. I told her I tried to make my best effort. I am late. I apologize. I do have to leave for another meeting. The Attorney General's office here, I don't want to speak for them, but I don't think they had planned to speak, but obviously Tom and Peggy can figure that out. I know the railroads, and I'll try to explain as much as I know, had planned to be here, but the Indiana Harbor Belt, the main person there is out of town, actually in Virginia. He's all right, I'm going to speak. If you want to boo and do whatever, that's just going to waste more time. But Peggy and Tom are both in contact with the individual. He did say that he would meet with them. He just couldn't be back in Chicago today. So that opportunity, I'm assuming, still exists based on what they told me. So a little information. Norfolk Southern is the rail line that pretty much runs parallel to Brainerd Avenue. That's the issue we've been dealing with for decades here, trying to get in and out of the neighborhood, blocks Burnham Avenue and Torrance Avenue. The grade separation, 130th and Torrance project, will bring Torrance Avenue and 130th under the rail tracks. So you'll never get stuck by the trains again. And I know we've had meetings about this. There's been plans on the books for 40 years regarding that. That project is almost done. By the end of August, beginning September, 3 out of the 4 legs will be done so that you can get in and out 130th and south on Torrance. May of next year, you'll be able to travel north on Torrance towards the river south there in South Chicago. But the Norfolk Southern carries that line. The Norfolk Southern also operates this river line here too, which runs between Mackinac and Green Bay. The Indiana Harbor Belt is one of the many rail operators, owners in Chicago. And Chicago has 7 of the 8 major railroad lines in the country. And you've heard Chicago's the hub? Yes. A lot of traffic comes through here, from truck to rail to barge to airplane. That's why Chicago is such a desirable economic engine. The Indiana Harbor Belt, again, runs trains along this line here. Yes. The rail line that I mentioned running north and south. It's owned by the Norfolk Southern. The Indiana Harbor Belt, owns a bunch of tracks in Calumet City, Burnham. They call it the Burnham Yard. When you go over the bridge past the golf course, those rails over there, all part of the Burnham Yard. Indiana Harbor Belt also has a facility just east of Powderhorn. So if you're taking Brainerd down to Indiana, right before the rail tracks, you look left, that's their yard there too. In addition to the Norfolk Southern running along Brainerd, what else do we have? The South Shore. So a lot of congestion there. So when you have multiple rail operators and then crossings like that, it creates problems. One of the questions was, why do trains stop? And let me just qualify this. I'm not a rail expert. I've contacted, been in discussion with the rail operators. I think once those groups talk to whomever, they'll clarify this. So please don't perceive me as the rail expert. This is just my conversations, meetings with them. So the Indiana Harbor Belt runs trains again in Burnham, around the golf course more or less, east of Powderhorn, and up until 20 years ago, ran down, shall we say, 136th Street. In 2001, they pulled out the tracks. They never abandoned those tracks. It was just because of lack of use that they pulled them out. They still service ASCON, which is the industry across from the senior suites. So there's a spur that goes in there. And if you just be patient with me, I'm going to try to give you a lot of information because I'm sure there's a lot of questions and I think this will address a lot of those. So that's pretty much the rail operations there. Again, Norfolk Southern is the big operator. They run along Brainerd, cross Torrance, turn, cross 130th, and then turn north. And they run parallel to Stony Island and Torrance. So if you ever take Torrance Avenue towards South Darien, or if you ever go back by Lake Calumet, it's the rail that goes north-south over there. Norfolk Southern has a big yard at 103rd Street. So if you've ever been by the police station by the Big Hill, that's their Calumet yard. So to answer some of the questions about why some problems occur in terms of delays, one, when some of these trains are leaving yards, well, when all the trains are leaving the yards, It's a federal regulation that the conductor walk the train to make sure everything looks all right. You've seen that in movies, you've probably seen it elsewhere, the conductor has to get there and walk it. That takes some time, obviously depending on the length of the train, but it's a federal regulation. Those probably aren't the major causes of delays that we see here, because those trains tend to be in the yards. Now, a common reason for delays, though, is if there's switching issues, and it was mentioned earlier. These trains have to go in and out of certain other yards, so they have to sometimes bypass the yard and then back into it, just like we back into our parking spot. That happens. Sometimes there's mechanical error. About a month ago on a Saturday, one of the trains broke down here. I called up the number on the rail, the Norfolk Southern and the Indiana Harbor Belt, and they had mechanical problems. So those are some of the major reasons why the trains block the grade crossings, the roads that cross the rail. I've talked to these folks and said, especially with this one, this line here, if at all possible, make sure you go as far away from the neighborhood as possible. They said they try to do that. When they do break down or have some kind of error, that's when they're blocking this rail crossing. The Indiana Harbor Belt is redoing the line, again, across 136th Street because of increased economic activity. We know the economy is getting a little better, housing prices are up a little bit, things are better with the stock market, all that. That's seen in industry. And the Indiana Harbor Belt, which again runs behind the golf course, around Powderhorn, 136th Street here, services a bunch of businesses to our north, including Aero Terminals, the Calumet Industrial Railroad, Calumet River Terminals, Carmoose, Great Lakes, Kinder Morgan, KCBX, Napoleon Savage, PBS, some of us know that by the Babe Ruth 122nd, Reserve Marine Terminals, which is mainly the Old Republic Steel, and SH Bell, which is at 101st and the river. So those are some of the clients that the Indiana Harbor Belt, those are the clients that the Indiana Harbor Belt serves on this line. They move primary metals, chemicals, petroleum, food products, scrap iron, coal, coke, whole grain. They operate generally 6 trains, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 4 on Tuesday and Thursday, and 4 on Saturday and Sunday. Average train length is about 75 cars. Big ones can be up to 130. And again, I'll let those folks talk about specifics of that. One of the benefits, so there's questions about why is this 136th Street kind of track being reopened? Because of increased demand, but also it alleviates some of the problems from the traditional route, which is again the one that crosses right by the South Shore Station. This line here, it's at Green Bay Mackinac, crosses by the South Shore Station. The problems there, it has to cross the Norfolk Southern line and the South Shore. So when you have 3 rail operators converging, as was just said earlier, it creates problems. By reactivating the 136th Street, and that's not the technical name of it, it alleviates that congestion there. That creates a bottleneck. If you have the South Shore, if you have Norfolk Southern, if you have everyone else, by going around the longer way, they can keep more train in their yard, away from the neighborhood, and move it without causing a conflict over here. And I know it's not easy or acceptable. That's the unfortunate reality there. Some questions I think were asked about the noise. Federal regulations, the Federal Railroad Administration requires that any trains passing grade crossings have to blow their horns. Obviously, we know why that is. It's a safety concern.
Blow it or lay on it?
They have to blow it. Okay, I'm not going to dispute that. There's a certain, I think they have to do 1 blow and 2 long or something like that. Again, I'm not a railroad expert, but it's required. So if someone doesn't do that, if the conductor does not do that, they're in violation of federal law. I've talked to the Indiana Harbor Belt and the Transportation Department with the city. One of the things we're pursuing, and I put flyers out to some of the neighbors along this corridor, is trying to pursue a quiet zone. Local municipalities, governments, Chicago 3rd does Avenue O does not. So we're trying to formalize that, and I'm not going to lie to you here, this process is not going to be done tonight. It has to go through the federal government, and as bad as the local governments are, the federal government takes even that much more time. But we have started the process probably 2 months ago. All this data collection is taking place, a lot of input by the railroads. If it's found to be necessary, the railroads will have to pay for the improvements. At Avenue O, the Indiana Harbor Belt has already agreed to put in the gates, and these are the larger gates that go down. So for any of you who like to go around the gates to beat the traffic, I know there's some of us in the room who do that, that won't be an option. Those gates will completely cover the road. That's a safety precaution. So that's going to happen at 136th and Avenue O.
Can you start fielding some of the concerns?
Well, let me just finish up because I have a few more questions, hopefully. Some questions about limits on the train lanes. The Federal Railroad Administration, and again, very strong, powerful organization. No limits on trains, and trains trump anyone else. So if a train's coming here, a car gets stuck, you know, the cars have lower priority. Same thing with the bridges. The bridges go up, we all lived here, many of us for our entire lives know when the bridges go up, it's a pain in the backside. That maritime traffic trumps the vehicular traffic. So I've told people that for years, I've experienced it, that's the federal regulations. In terms of the quiet zones, some people may say, well, what the heck? We got the horns that they're laying on, now we got the bells. The lights and bells can be directed to minimize the amount of noise, so that's the trade-off. You don't have the big horns, but you got the ringing and the gates that come down to really protect vehicular and pedestrian traffic. And as far as the city of Chicago and other municipalities writing tickets, sometimes they're written, but a 2008 Illinois Supreme Court, and I'm not happy about this either, was a Supreme Court ruling states that no, the Federal Railroad Administration, again, trumps local municipalities. So sure, some tickets can be written. If these rail operators go to court and challenge them, they just say, here, there's no basis for that. But it's important that we call up, because if there are problems, like I mentioned that delay here about a month ago, I found out from the guy that it was a breakdown, a mechanical breakdown. It wasn't the switching error, it wasn't anything but that. So that's a quick summary of some of the things. Again, I know the railroad operators in the Indiana Harbor Belt and Norfolk Southern are willing to come out, but there was a scheduling conflict, but they did speak to Peggy and Tom.
Alderman Polk, does that mean that you'll help us get a second meeting with the railroad then? Because it's hard for me to believe that we only had one person that comes out to meet and talk to the community.
He spoke to you directly. I would only want to speak to that one person. The Indiana Harbor Belt is not a group of thousands of employees. This is the person who basically is the logistical guy. Don't meet with anyone but Leo.
Okay. Well, you know, I asked you to help us with that. You
I gave you
said,
his number. Yeah, I helped you already.
but that, you know, I asked you to have some influence on that, and you said at your meeting you contact them. So in any case, I have a couple of questions.
Wait, I gave your number, his number to you to talk to him about the agenda, so you were as prepared as possible. You're our alderman. You do it. Can you please not interrupt?
Okay.
All right, well, I'm going to respond to that. Would you please let me speak? Would you please let me speak?
Yeah, you've been speaking for the last 20 minutes.
And I'm trying to give you information that I think is relevant.
No information.
What? Have you learned anything?
Please, I have a couple of questions. First off, you said about the gates.
Yes.
Why were they allowed to put in the tracks if the gates for the safety of the public were not put in at the same time?
It's not required.
It's not required, but could not the city of Chicago or our aldermen have had some influence on that because the public is concerned?
Yeah, and that's what I just told you.
The Democrats, that's what they get.
Okay. If we come on up here and speak, please.
The Democratic Party is what screwed the whole state.
All right, can we have a productive conversation here, please? I know emotions are high, but if you have a question, I'll try to answer to the best of my ability. Why were gates installed there? Because they're not required. We're requiring them to do one at every row. The gates are already there at 133rd and 134th. As I've said, I've asked them to do it at 135th as well, and to upgrade those as part of the quiet zone process.
Okay, I have another
Maybe
question.
answer.
I have another question. We personally went to the fire stations and asked them if they knew what traveled through our community on these trains, and they said they did not. Now, we think it's important that our emergency responders be aware of what's coming through our community in case there is a catastrophe. You know that a truck tipped over just a Friday ago, and again, why isn't some kind of plan put in place? I mean, we're talking 75 cars full of this stuff.
I'm not the fire department, but what I can tell you is that the fire department personnel do receive training on such things as rail safety. And for major incidents, the hazardous material team is on site. The main responsibility of the fire personnel is to clear the area, just like police, keep it safe. The fire department, and I spoke to the fire chief as late as today, talked about the hazmat team and the basic training that firefighters again receive during their training academy.
So every station has a hazmat team?
Now, a hazardous materials team is a very technical, very advanced training. It's like the SWAT team of fire department. There's two of them for the entire city. The closest one, there's a south side and a north side, is at approximately 39th and the Dan Ryan. That's a brand new facility, all state of the art. It handles the whole south side. The other one is up on the north side.
They never get past 130.
They'll never get past the bridges in a train.
Yeah. That's what we're talking about.
If we're gonna,
All right, I love that commentary, but I think I mentioned the 130th and Torrance project, which some of us, some of us were born, dealt with that problem. After 40 plus years of that, in September of this year, the majority of that problem will be alleviated. You'll be able to get in and out without dealing with the crossings over there. It's not going to happen here. That project was $150 million. The logistics here, the closeness of the tracks and the South Shore and everything else makes this, if not impossible, probably a $300 million job, and that will relieve the majority of the problems in terms of getting in and out.
It's opening in September. It's opening.
In September, 3 out of the 4 legs, if you can imagine intersection, 130th, both in and out will be open. The south leg going towards River Oaks will be open. In May of next year, about 11 months from now, the north leg from 130th going towards the bridge will be open. So May of next year, it'll all be done. Finally, yes. Yeah, I'm with you.
You go run over there on the track.
you got a motion over here.
Of this, which limit what they can do, including enclosures and watering and paving of roadways, discharge of water. I know there's at least 5 companies who have asked for variances. Those are all being looked at as we speak by the health department. They have a right to appeal it, and I've spoken to our law department and health department. The best thing we can do is make sure we're legally sound so that we don't say, you're asking for this thing and we're going to give it to you. You're asking for the same thing and we're not going to give it to you. So I'd like to limit that as much as possible. KCBX wants to put their stuff in sheds, huge containers or buildings. Short of them not being here, that's the best thing I think we can do. If you want shelter, you don't want people to hear what you're doing, what you look like, what you smell like, you keep it enclosed. Just like a prisoner, they throw him or her in prison. Isolated, solitary confinement. We're asking or requiring them to do that or skip town. That's what they're looking to do. So I want them to be as restrictive as possible.
Okay, well, the ordinance called for 2 years that they should close these
Yeah.
files. Now they're asking for variance for 4 years.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know that we have some input into the Department of Public Health.
Sure, comments.
As individuals, and I'm asking, are you going to do that on our behalf as a community?
Yeah, I've already spoken to the health department. I've already spoken to the health department and the law department to minimize anything that they want to do. They may want 4 years. No, maybe 2 years, maybe 1.5 years is appropriate.